So, Brent, what an honor to have you. Thank you so much for being a part of our community of practice channel here on YouTube. And on behalf of SETI, I want to thank you so much for your leadership today.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Awesome. So, as always, we begin by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, if you can please do us the honors by introducing yourself to our listeners and viewers and tell us about your amazing work.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'm sitting on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and the Haudenosaunee nations, and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement here in Hamilton. Yeah, so name is Brent Mcknight. I'm a strategy professor at the Mcmaster University at the DeGroote School of Business. And I think one of the things I'd want to talk about today is the role I've got in catalyzing a social impact hub that is still in its infancy, but is doing some work to try to bring together community partners, government, for-profit agents, and as well as professors on the academic side of things. So it's a student-driven initiative that supports a new building that we have here on campus. And that is the McLean Center for Collaborative Discovery. And so we're changing some of our pedagogy and really trying to emphasize experiential learning, community engaged learning, and that's the genesis of some of this work that we've been doing here at the school.
Amazing, amazing. So, what inspires you about this work? What got you in it?
Yeah, I think the mess is inspiring. Anytime you're bringing together different actors together, it's a messy process. But it's through that mess that things, kind of get clearer, where you learn more about each other, and where you think you can actually have a real impact as it relates to finding new solutions. Our students are also really inspiring. I find in university, the students bring so much energy, so much life, and they push forward our own agendas. And I'm always surprised. I shouldn't be surprised, but I'm always surprised and pleasantly surprised at the energy and their ability to drive through completion of various activities. This year we launched and we had our event in the summer where we brought together 60 different actors from the local community that are in the for-profit sector and the nonprofit sector, academics as well as government actors, to start to have conversations about, where we could collectively solve existing problems. And we're focusing right now on financial inclusion as a topic area, or exclusion, and trying to see what we might be able to do to catalyze pilot projects and to change some of the trajectories in the local area.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, now on the flip side, like what are the challenges and barriers that you face in your work, and how have you overcome them or in the process of overcoming them?
Yeah, for sure. Coming together across sectors, I think that's a role as a business school. We've got to find ways to bring business to the nonprofit and the government sectors. And, one of the big challenges is that business often moves at a different pace than the nonprofit sector, much faster, and they're wanting solutions faster. They're looking at quarters and years, whereas nonprofit and government often looks at years and more than years at times to move forward on solutions. So that differencing and pacing is something we've got to find a way to buffer and to create a solution. The other challenge there is often around the clarity that's needed. Our for-profit partners want a ton of clarity. They want to know exactly what's happening and understand all the risks. Whereas the nonprofit sector is much more comfortable in saying, you know what, I'm willing to participate in this. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen, what the exact outcome is going to be. It's a process, and they're more comfortable with that element. So these are two of the bridging elements that we're having to play with. And the other piece is really wanting to be intentional about how we include our students in the work. And so translating something that we might be working on at the intersection of different actors to a project, an independent study, something that our students can grab onto. That's another translation process that is very difficult to navigate, and we're at the early stages of doing that.
Yeah, I can see those two to balance for profit, not for profit, and what their needs and wants are for sure. Can
Yep.
be challenging. Yeah. So okay, so is there anything new and any developments, anything new you wanted to amplify at this time?
Yeah, I think you know what we're at the early stages of what's going to be a multi-year process, and we're going somewhat slow because you know because that's I think the pace in which we've got to be moving at, and so we're always looking for models and for ideas and or for partners that are wanting to come up with innovative solutions that are at the intersection of for-profit, nonprofit, government, and academics. Um, we think there's a lot of value for-profit organizations to understand how to truly engage. There's a lot of what we call CSR, it's corporate social responsibility. That is kind of being a community citizen, being part of the local community. But it can get washed out and it can lose its impact. And so I think it's difficult for for-profit actors to truly engage in a way that drives meaningful change, at the local level. So we're hoping that we can provide that. So we're looking for partners that are interested in that kind of relationship and interested in pushing forward in understanding how to do that. So I think that's one piece. And then, yeah, we're going to be continuing this fall is from what we worked on in the summer, and we're going to be spending time kind of diving a little deeper with building a governance structure, but then also diving deeper into some of the areas that are identified over the summer that we want to pursue further. So, looking for partners in that regard as well.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I see what you're saying too, especially like, trying to with those CSR goals and SDG goals too, right? Like
Yeah.
kind of turning those into sustainable goals. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, it's
awesome.
tricky. I think there's a lot of like hand waving that's done and or
Hmm.
a lot of imprecise relationships.
Hmm.
Maybe I don't know if that word is the right where it doesn't really fully capitalize on the real business model and the real benefit to society that a for-profit organization can provide. It's kind
Understand.
of generalized and washed out. I think we actually ask a lot of our for-profit organizations at times. We sometimes ask them to be all things. We want them to be, socially responsible, environmentally responsible, economically responsible, and these are all good things. And, should we ask them to be all things? Businesses are actual specialists. Even if they're, broad-based businesses, they specialize in doing things, and that's what we reward them for in a capitalist society is to make choices. I'm a strategy prof, so good strategy is making choices, not doing everything, being intentional about how you create value. So when we ask for-profit firms to do all things, we kind of wash out what they could do and the kind of value they could create if they were more intentional. So we're looking to, bridge that intentionality, on the for-profit side with, solutions that would benefit those in government, nonprofit, academics, etc.
For sure, for sure. That's awesome. So let me ask you, how do you feel about the future of social enterprise? Like, how do you feel, the outcome will be stepping
Yeah.
into 2030,
For sure. Yeah. It's interesting because the term social enterprise, I think, is one that we like to teach, but it's not one that practitioners like to use. And there's a few reasons for that. One reason is that it might be hard to get funding if you claim to be a social enterprise. Maybe there's biases or there's a sense that they're riskier because they're not focused just on business opportunities, but on something else. So I think that term itself is something we got to be mindful of because we need a label for things like this. We need to be able to talk about that. We need language. These are all really important things, and we need either to destigmatize that kind of term from an investor perspective, or we need to have other language that we can use to talk about the benefits of a social enterprise. But I think I do think it's strong. I think there's still a lot of desire among people because at the end of the day, people are what drive businesses forward to have impact and have meaningful impact. And sometimes that's through philanthropy. Other times that's through a meaningful business venture that has outcomes of specific interest to different stakeholders. So I think I don't think the need for this kind of language and this kind of perspective is going to go away. I do think we've got to be mindful of the swings. There's lots of swings, political, cultural swings that happen. We're currently experiencing one pretty strongly from our friends down south that they're having a reaction against some of the ideologies that have been um, driving some of the agenda in social entrepreneurship. And that's unfortunate because it's destroying a lot of value that's being created. But I do see these as pendulums. I see them as swinging back and forth, and I think the pendulum's going to continue to swing, and it's there's a strong future in purpose-based organizations.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I always say, like every interview I do, I always go back to the generation, this Gen Z and beyond, because they are holding us accountable to what, the bags that we're leaving behind. So what foundations are we leaving? What solid structure are we leaving for them in order to carry on this mission? So got
Yeah,
to be hopeful for them.
Absolutely. There's just so many pressures right now that we're all facing, and I think that's another reason why we're feeling that we're pushing uphill more and more often. AI being a big one these days, and what that means for our society, and what's going to end up happening. Job markets and productive work and these kinds of pieces, big unknowns, right? And then our climate pushes are under assault, right now. But it is, I still think, is part of a trend towards stronger climate responsibility. We're at a bit of a large speed bump right now, but I think those will come back. There is I think there's still a sense and an understanding of the need to make these changes. One thing I've been reflecting on is that I think many people have felt, and many of my students have felt like, that what's the role of government, what's the role of capitalism, what's the role of businesses, etc. And I think inherently there's always been this subtle movement towards improved environmental performance, improved social standards, improved etc. And I think that's been driving decision making at businesses. And we're seeing, when that's not there, we're seeing a pullback. So I think it's going to help us think through the philosophy of, how do we make capitalism work for our society, by being intentional and being smart about the goalposts.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love your way of thinking. It's very it's not one sided. You have to look at all sides to things because we want to pick daisies and think everything but we have to be mindful of the surroundings. There could be thorns on them, so we have to be aware.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thorns are
Mhm.
also just like at the end of the day, we wanted to build a system, socio-economic, democratic government system that works for everyone, and that's hard, right? Because everyone is
Mhm.
different, so much diversity
Mhm.
across lots of different issues, and that means it's one might think of a clear solution that doesn't work for others, and that political divide is really strong lately, and one that
Mhm.
those on both sides, and it's sad that we think of them as two sides, but those on all sides of an issue need to be paying more attention to each other to understand what they're all saying, because a sustainable solution is only sustainable if we can all mediate and agree and govern through that solution.
That's right. That's right. Well, Brent, this was too fast. This was really good. So I'm gonna ask you. This was like so impactful. I want to go on and on and on, but I have another interview. So I want to ask you, please give me your closing thoughts and your calls to action. And I'm gonna tie in like, what does success look like to you? If you can tie that in for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the call to action is like there are for any individual that is looking to have an impact, there's pathways, right? They're not always the easiest pathways, right? And I think what makes it harder is that you've got to understand a system, you got to understand different actors, and you got to find ways to shift that system in subtle ways, and to push a little bit, right? All entrepreneurship is pushing. It's just about where you're pushing and how you're pushing. So I just encourage everyone that's out there looking to make decisions about how they move forward in any challenge, there's always an opportunity, and at any time, there's always opportunities. So look for those opportunities, and stay strong, and be true to who you are, and what you want.
That's right. That's right. Well, Brent, we thank you on behalf of SETC. We thank you so much for taking the time. It's very impactful. I know it will really leave a positive impression on people who watch this, this episode. And we will close the way that we began by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So I'm sure it's not a goodbye. We'll definitely be collaborating and getting involved. So thank you once again for today.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
All right, dear. Bye bye.
Cheers.